What is going on, everybody? Xaenca here, back once again with another video just for you. Friendly reminder as always, if you do end up enjoying this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. So we are going to be talking about episode 5 and just season 8 in general of Game of Thrones, so if you're not already caught up and don't want anything spoiled, now is a good time to leave. And much like the previous Game of Thrones video I did, this video is also going to be more of a rant, but with that spoiler alert and that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some Game of Thrones. So I've thought about this and I don't know where else I would begin other than the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Daenerys turning into the Mad Queen. It's funny, but as they were talking about trying to get the opposition to surrender in the beginning portions of the episode, I kind of already expected her to turn. The last interaction with Jon Snow was the dead giveaway. Far more people in Westeros love you than love me. I don't have love here, I only have fear. And then Jon Snow tells her that he loves her, but then as they start to make out, he backs away, and then she's like, alright then, let it be fear. That was their last interaction before the official turn during the battle. Now the question here obviously is, does it make sense? Was it too abrupt, or did they build it up enough for it to make sense? Obviously we all know about the Targaryen madness. If for whatever reason you forgot about the Targaryen madness, they kept reinforcing it throughout this episode, talking about when a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. Being the metaphor, of course, as to whether or not the Targaryen is going to end up insane. So if we were to look at it, what were the conditions that brought Daenerys to be overwhelmed by her Targaryen insanity? Okay, one, she just brought up with Jon that the people of Westeros don't particularly love her. An embodiment of this would be Sansa Stark, who constantly rejects the idea of Daenerys as the queen. And this idea is echoed with people of the North, then the whole fact that she's a female, you know, the people of Westeros, so on and so forth. Because then there's a whole thing about finding out that Jon Snow is also a Targaryen and her nephew. Which is an unfortunate thing to find out, to say the least, after you've already fallen in love with the person. Because Dany seems like she wants to be fine with it, but Jon is evidently turned away by Daenerys being his aunt. And rightfully so. I mean, it's such an awkward situation that they're in. But this is what causes the distance between them. Now Daenerys is feeling lonelier and lonelier. And then there's the fact that Jon Snow being a male Targaryen makes him have a bigger claim to the throne as far as bloodlines go. That goddamn patriarchy, I tell ya. But regardless of how many times Jon tells Daenerys that he does not want the throne, Daenerys feels like her dreams are falling apart. She sees that the people love Jon, they gravitate towards Jon, he's the king of the north, uniting normal folk and wildlings alike. And regardless of whether he wants the throne or not, if the people find out that he is the rightful heir to the throne, they will pick him over Daenerys. In her mind for one thing, but you know, when you listen to the conversation between Tyrion and Varys, they make it out like, yeah, that would actually happen. So there's that. Then there are the losses. So she lost her Jorah in the Long Night, one of the people that she knows for a fact loves her, as well as a huge portion of her army who also love her, so I mean that's fading away, I guess, if you want to look at subtext. Then she lost her second dragon in Rhaegal and Missandei in episode 4. Now I know Rhaegal's one of her air quotes children, but we talked about this in the last video that Rhaegal getting killed is entirely their fault. But for the sake of this video, we're just gonna be like, alright, she lost Rhaegal. And Missandei's supposed to be her best friend and a reminder of why she does the things that she does. And lastly, we have the failures and betrayals. We have Tyrion's failure over and over and over again that we talked about also in the last video, which we'll talk about more later. We have the whole thing where she asked Jon Snow not to tell his siblings/cousins about being a Targaryen and all that. But because of Jon Snow's seemingly two-dimensional sense of duty and responsibility, he says that he has to. And he does. He tells Arya and Sansa about him being a Targaryen. He swears them to secrecy, but I'm like, who the hell are you kidding, dude? Do you really think they're gonna keep that secret? So anyway, Sansa tells Tyrion. Tyrion tells Varys, and Varys decides that maybe Jon would be a better ruler than Daenerys would be. Now we saw Varys penning a letter, probably explaining that Jon Snow is the true heir to the throne. I think that was the last sentence of it, which is his betrayal to the queen. Tyrion tells Daenerys, you know, that, oh, Varys betrayed you, but it's like, no, you did also. Which she calls him out on. She's like, well, Jon betrayed me first because he told his siblings/cousins, and then his siblings/cousins told you, then you told Varys, everybody's betraying me, what the fuck? Then at some point through the episode, Tyrion betrays her yet again when he sets Jaime free. So the conditions were all there. I mean, there were enough to make me accept what happened, but at the same time, I feel like the buildup was hampered by being rushed in this season alone, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't have enough time to heat up and reach a boiling point. Probably because the buildup was not spread out throughout the different episodes well enough, or maybe they could have spread it out to season 7 even, but most of the buildup was just in episode 5, and that's probably why it's so hard for people to accept it. Especially when you're going from a character that a few seasons ago locked up all 3 of her dragons when they killed 1 child, now completely annihilated King's Landing, burning women and children alike. Tens to hundreds of thousands of innocent people murdered by the same person that locked up her dragons for the death of 1 child. Yes, insanity makes you behave beyond reason, but it was just the build-up to that insanity. Could have used a little more TLC. Now, at the same time that I like that Drogon was made out to be as devastating as he was, made it harder for me to accept that she didn't just burn the Iron Fleet in the last episode. Because I brought that up in the last video, it's like, okay, so now that Rhaegal gets shot out of the sky, you charge, but then nothing comes of it. You could have easily done what you did in episode 5 in episode 4, but you didn't even attempt to do that. But then in episode 5, you're dodging these bolts so easily that it's like, why couldn't you have dodged them that easily in episode 4 and just be done with it? I know some are going to argue because it was a surprise attack and they didn't see it coming because she came from way high in the sky. But then she could have done that in episode 4. She could have flown way high into the sky, flew like behind them, then came down and just did what she did in episode 5. Long story short, I liked that whole Iron Fleet scene, but I was like, that could have been done in episode 4. You know what I mean? I found it hilarious how useless the Golden Company ended up being. Found it hilarious how quickly Drogon decimated the whole inventory of scorpions on the castle walls. This battle and the Long Night were that easy to resolve, and we've built up for so long getting to these points. But as far as like finding one person to blame for the turn and the devastation on King's Landing, everybody can thank Jon Snow for that. The Arya Stark part of this episode was just completely unnecessary to me. Like, okay, she goes with the Hound to King's Landing because she's like, I'm gonna go kill Cersei. Then at some point throughout King's Landing being destroyed, the Hound tells her to fuck off basically because, alright, something's gonna get Cersei killed. So she's like, yeah, that makes sense. Alright, peace out. Then the Hound finally gets to confront the Mountain, which I talked about in the last video that I guess they did deliver on. Didn't make sense why the Hound didn't just kill Cersei as she walked by him, but whatever. It was hilarious when the Mountain killed Cersei's hand. You will obey your queen's command, Sir Gregor, and then he picks him up and just throws him against the rocks. Oh, that was classic. So technically the Hound won that battle if the Mountain was still a living human being, because, you know, that stab to the gut sword goes all the way through. Obviously did nothing because the Mountain's now a zombie, but technically the Hound won. Didn't really like that the Hound had to sacrifice himself to put an end to the Mountain, but it is what it is. He had his character arc fulfilled at least. Another sore spot with this episode is how Cersei Lannister dies. I mean, I don't know about this one. The whole we will die together, Jaime, in each other's arms, you know, it's like, I was reading comments about this randomly throughout the internet, and one person that actually liked it was like, well, it is kind of poetic justice that everything that she built up playing the Game of Thrones is now falling down on her. And that's an interesting way of looking at it, I suppose, but I don't know, I feel like that was just such a weak ending for somebody as evil as Cersei. I feel like she deserved to suffer more for all of the suffering she's caused others. But instead, we get just a bunch of rocks falling on her and Jaime gets to die with her. I hated the whole Euron washing up on shore just at the right moment when Jaime's walking by so they can have a showdown. It's turning into Game of Convenience, you know what I mean? A lot of these like points within the episodes are just way too convenient lately. And then let's talk about my boy Tyrion again, because it's now episode 5 and he just still keeps doing the same stupid thing over and over and over again. Once again, he expected Jaime to change Cersei's mind somehow, even though Cersei has shown time and time again that she is a monster. Tyrion's like, oh no, this will be the time. And now you have one episode left to somehow fix this character assassination that you've done on Tyrion Lannister. The only way I can see the show making up for how he's been portrayed in season 8 is if he himself kills Daenerys for what she did. Because he's been doing the things he's been doing out of some blind faith in Daenerys, and now that that's all fallen apart as he watched King's Landing be completely destroyed, that would be the only redemption for his character now. I did like his farewell to Jaime. That was a very heartfelt moment, but again, just the utter stupidity you're having one of the most intelligent characters throughout the series portray in season 8 is just mind-boggling, to say the least. Then we have Varys, who much like the other characters has had a big fall from grace this season so far. Much like Tyrion, Varys was one of the most intelligent characters on the show, and much like Tyrion, he is also portrayed as a moron in season 8. The Varys I know would not even have hinted to Tyrion that he planned to side with Jon Snow over Daenerys, but let's play along and say that he did. In that conversation with Tyrion, he's the one who made it a point that it doesn't really matter what Jon wants, it's what the people want. So based on that information and knowing that Jon is loyal to Daenerys, why in the hell would you confront Jon Snow about it? Being as smart as you are, wouldn't you have just informed the people and let them force Jon into power? Instead of confronting Jon and getting caught and executed like an idiot. Think about it, that could have been another one of the reasons that drove Daenerys mad is her people started turning on her. Where instead of paranoia, it actually becomes reality that people are now actually siding with Jon, and you could have the people confront Jon and Daenerys saying, no, but Jon's the rightful heir to the throne. And Jon all emotional like he always does, I don't want it. But you know, Daenerys seeing all this knows that regardless of Jon quelling the situation or not, this is the reality now, that people will side with Jon over her, and would be one further thing to make the Mad Queen turn a lot more acceptable. Instead, we got Varys being an idiot, then getting barbecued, so there you go. But that's all I've got for this rant right now. We have one episode to go, and before episode 5 came out, me and my friends talked about it, and they're like, oh, what do you think is gonna happen in the last 2 episodes? And I was like, well, Jon Snow's gonna die, Daenerys is gonna die, or both. And now that Daenerys did what she did to King's Landing, there's a big rift between Jon Snow and Daenerys, so the likelihood of that happening is even higher now. But it will be interesting at least to see how this all comes to an end next Sunday. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. If you did end up enjoying this video, make sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends, family, whoever you think would be interested in nonsense like this. And subscribe, ring that notification bell, and click that always so you can always be alerted every time I put out another one of these oxtail soups. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.